Hey, I know that one. Greek myth has become one of the most popular forms of mythologies out there, at least in terms of inspiring pop culture. It has helped create iconic characters such as Superman, Wonder Woman, Aquaman, and even Marvel and DC's Hercules. Of course, with such a popular creative base existing, a few not so good adaptations were bound to happen for honey.
Oh my god, what is that? Oh my god! What is that?
Terrible adaptations have always existed, but not as much as myth-based adaptations have, at least in my opinion. Characters who become a caricature of themselves is one of the worst ways to write them. One-dimensional characters that seem to have no reason to exist other than what they were written for are especially prevalent in Greek myth-based media. One of the most frequent examples of this is Hades, the Greek god of the underworld. Often portrayed as an evil, cruel, Satan-like replacement in movies and video games alike, Hades is arguably one of the most misrepresented and misunderstood characters in media to date. Disney especially is guilty of this in their 1997 film Hercules, where they made him, surprise surprise, yet again, another villain wanting to destroy the world. Incredible. While I understand the fact that this movie was meant for kids, I can't help but think that there would have been a plethora of better ways to write their characters. Anyway, I digress. Now let's get back to talking about Hades, the video game this time. While not being the titular protagonist, Hades plays a central role in the game. The antagonist. Who would have thought? What sets it apart, however, is how Hades and, by extension, Zagreus, the main character, are written. For those of you who are unaware of the full plot of the game, I'll be linking Squatch Gaming's video with a full summary of the story of Hades in the description below. In the game, Hades is a character with two conflicting interests: to bring Persephone back as his wife and keep his family, or to maintain the peace between the underworld and the Olympians. Ultimately, Hades decides to go with the latter, sacrificing the one thing that makes his dominion over the underworld bearable: family. He tries to make it seem like he isn't affected by this decision by putting up a tough exterior towards everyone in his domain, something that an actual individual might actually do as a coping mechanism. Similarly, Zagreus, his son, despite belonging to the overused
Quirky protagonist who throws funny quips
archetype, doesn't really fall flat as many of today's characters do. Him being locked up in an overbearing household that watches and judges his every move naturally pushes him to want to get out of that environment, at least initially. As you go on your runs, you slowly start to discover the close relationships he has with the characters in the underworld, like Hades himself, Nyx, Achilles, or even Scully, the punching bag. Later on, he learns about his early death and resurrection as a stillborn child, which pushed his mother to leave Tartarus. This is where Zagreus makes it his mission to convince his mother to come back and reconcile with his father. See where I'm going with this? This is where a lot of Hades' charm comes from. Arguably all its characters are believable and fleshed out enough to make them feel like actual people with different goals and ambitions. Plus the fact that you can only discover these pieces of dialogue by talking to their respective characters, it makes you feel like you have something to look forward to after every run, regardless of how it went. Side characters like Achilles and Orpheus, characters who, let's be honest here, would contribute nothing to the narrative in other games, have more personality than the average Ubisoft protagonist. I'm looking at you, every Ubisoft game ever. The characters are both well written and well designed so that they don't fall into the trap of being caricatures of themselves, while also respecting the myth that they are based on. And while I'm not a Greek myth expert by any means, Supergiant really did their research and sprinkle a lot of Easter eggs all throughout the game's world. An oversimplified example of this would be Hades' ring signifying his status as the god of wealth. I'm not going to dive too deep into the lore of Hades, but I will link to Ludicier's video that goes into an unbelievably thorough examination on the game's references to actual Greek myth in the description below. Another thing that makes this game so good are Hades' original soundtracks. The music in this game is mwah! It's so criminally good. I mean, listen to this banger. Seriously, video game music has no right to slap that hard. Supergiant's music team, and especially Darren Korb, the lead composer, did an amazing job of capturing its electrifying gameplay and turning it into pure musical brilliance. To top it off, Hades has the best voice acting I've ever heard in any indie game ever. Supergiant's incredible dialogue randomizing system makes sure that no dialogue gets repeated enough for it to feel samey. Couple that with memorable writing, and you have a recipe for something truly amazing. Hades' gameplay is a mix of thrilling, fast-paced combos and deliberate movement. While I don't think that the gameplay is perfect, there is still an incredible amount of variety in the ways to play the game. All in all, there are 6 weapons in the game, namely the sword, spear, shield, bow, fists, and gun. Each have 4 aspects, most of which bring new ways to use the weapon and play the game. Buffs, or boons as they're called in this game, can be collected from their respective gods. There are 10 gods in total, all specializing in different things, from Zeus's lightning bolts to Athena's defensive phalanx shields. So whatever combo of god boons that you choose, there is sure to be a build that works for you. All these weapon, boon, and reward choices make for a truly dynamic gaming experience. One problem that I do have, however, is that while all types of builds are fun, it is a bit sad to see that only a few gods truly dominate, as it would have been way better to see underperforming gods like Ares wreak absolute havoc in your runs. Another complaint that I have for Hades is how there are only 5 bosses. Well, at least for the most part. And it's not that they're badly designed or imbalanced or whatever, it's that they have to be fought in the exact same order in every run. It makes your runs a bit repetitive sometimes, especially if you play for longer periods of time. It would have been better to have some sort of variety, though I'm not sure if that would have been the best decision lore-wise. All in all, Hades is a game that makes you feel like you're actually living with these ancient Chthonian friends and relatives. You'll learn their stories, understand their goals, and empathize with their pain. It makes you, the player, not only look forward to learning how the tale concludes, but also appreciate the journey that is the story itself. These characters are, after all, who we look forward to meeting again and again and keep us coming back for more.